Okay, so here's our third problem here. So once again, we're going to try to figure out the validity. So again, let's go ahead and identify the mood of this syllogism. So, all right. So the first premise says that some horses are not gray, right? So thinking back to the propositions, we know because of this particular quantifier and the fact that we have, not here in the predicate, and then we can say then that this represents an O proposition, right? We'll go back to the different forms of propositions. Okay, the second premise says no donkeys or horses. So once again, we look at this quantifier. We know then that this, because of this quantifier, will make this an E proposition. And finally, with the conclusion here, we say, therefore, some donkeys are gray, right? So again, we have this quantifier of some. There are no negations after the copula. And therefore, we know then that this particular proposition is an I proposition, right? So the mood then of this entire syllogism is OEI. All right. And now for the figure. Again, looking for the middle term here. So we can see horses is in the first one. Gray is also in that first premise here. And we see, again, donkeys in the second premise and horses again in the second premise. So because we have horses in both premises, we can say then that horses represents the middle term here. All right. So going down to the chart here, we'll say here that the first term in premise 1 is the middle term, and the second premise, the middle term is the second term. And then of course, again with the conclusion, we can go ahead and fill this out. This will be the subject and the predicate. So donkeys then would be the subject, and gray would be the predicate. So going back through this, gray represents the predicate, and donkeys represents the subject. So to fill this out, the predicate is our second term in the first premise, and in the second premise, the subject is the first term. All right. So this, once again, this particular figure is figure 1, if you look at your chart. All right. So again, looking at the chart, then we can see that almost kind of immediately that because of the mood of this particular syllogism, this syllogism cannot be a valid syllogism. It's invalid. It's because there are no valid syllogisms that have this particular mood of OEI. So we can then conclude from all of this that this particular syllogism is an invalid syllogism.